All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to This is the fourth, I think, fourth webinar for the Get Well series, promoting wellbeing services right here in Gippsland. And today is with Kael Costa. Before we get started, I would like to do an acknowledgement to country. So I'm going to read it because it's better if I read it. So, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land that I'm on as Kurnai country. I live in what is now known as Warrigal. I'd like to acknowledge that a welcome to country carries with it instructions on how to keep country safe and how to stay safe while visiting. Although I live, play and run an outdoor service here, I've never actually been formally welcomed to this country. I'd like to acknowledge the privilege that I receive as a non-Indigenous Australian as a result of invasion on this land where sovereignty was never ceded. And maybe, definitely there's irony here, acknowledge that my income is sourced from introducing people to the outdoors, nature and adventure. I would like to acknowledge that I don't know enough about this country, that I am not connected enough to local mob, and that I really do need to continue to educate myself on how to be respectful and cohabitate here with traditional custodians in a mutually beneficial way. I would also like to acknowledge the countries that you all might be watching this video from, and respectfully thank any First Nations people for being a part of this. So now I'm going to hand over to Kael Costa, who is you're a lot of things, but today you are introducing your new service, which is empowered coaching. But who better to talk about it than you? So over to you. You have control.
Awesome. My name's Kael Costa, and I guess I've kind of fallen into this kind of amalgamation of all my favorite modalities. So been coaching martial arts for over 15 years now, and the last 5 years gotten a lot more into the yoga, breathwork and meditation. And what started as just teaching people martial arts to fight has kind of transformed over the last few years to working a lot more with, like, say, martial arts as like a therapeutic tool. Like it could be like victims of crime clients, or working with some NDIS or quantum clients, and just like using it as a tool to help build up confidence and safety in the body, and then trying to lead people towards a little bit more of like the yoga and breathwork and meditation, which I've found to be a really powerful modality that's changed my life. So would love to share it with others. I'll click across to the next slide.
And I've known Kael for a very long time. We used to train together way back in the day, and then Kael went off to be a professional martial arts legend, and I took a different path. But I've trained with Kael when he was running his own MMA studio, and it's been amazing just to see you grow and where you've come from and what you're doing now. I'm really excited about your service.
Oh, awesome. Thanks. I remember
Sorry to interrupt there.
I remember you kicking my butt back in the day in Taekwondo as a teenager. Teaching me Taekwondo at Braha's martial arts.
That's a distant memory now.
Long time ago. So a little bit about me. Like, I love hiking and getting out in nature. Not enough time for it as much as I'd like, but most of my time spent training martial arts and studying and practicing yoga and Samkhya philosophy, and fascinated by the mind and all things consciousness. Currently enrolled in a diploma of clinical hypnotherapy and Gestalt psychotherapy to further that passion, along with give me another tool set to work with the clients that I found myself working with a lot more in the last 12 months. When I'm not coaching, I'm busy being a father of 3 to 2 beautiful and crazy kids, 3 beautiful and crazy kids that keep me on my toes. I used to run a gym full time. That was what I did for about 15 years. It was Costa MMA. When COVID hit, I sold half of it to a friend who became a business partner, and we rebranded it as Tribe MMA. So you'll see me there 2 nights a week coaching the group classes, which is a lot better than the 55 contact hours of class as it was.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I also run programs in schools, worked at most of the local high schools and a couple of the primary schools, and just got into the realm of running some like day retreats and workshops with my partner under the banner of Soul Warrior, which we're having a lot of fun with. And yeah, I guess what I feel like is my mission or my dharma would be to empower others to feel safe and confident in like both their body and in the outside world. Like I encounter a lot of like people who've experienced like assault or bullying or sexual violence, and they come in very withdrawn and closed off and contracted and very like hyper vigilant in like a bit of a state of like fight or flight, and without even realizing the difference I was making early on in the piece, like seeing them change over time, training in martial arts and seeing them get more confident and become more, feeling empowered and safe in their body has been really rewarding with some of the testimonials and feedback that's come back. So definitely wanted to shift gears in the last few years from group fitness to using martial arts more as like a therapeutic model. I do this through physical training, positive habit building, emotional regulation from modalities like breathwork and yoga. So I find that these practices give you a lot of tools to cope with various like mental health, as well as like severe trauma, physical and sexual abuse, and, work on improving self-confidence as a kind of talkless therapy. Rather than going into story, like that's not my place. Like I'll leave that to the counselors and the psychologists. But I find that when people come to work with me, rather than talking about what they're doing over and over again, which can be re-traumatizing, it's like we just focus on like that forward-thinking positive psychology model and work on setting goals and getting good at martial arts and implementing a daily practice of yoga and breathwork and journaling, and have seen some pretty epic transformations in that realm.
You'd probably find that, doing the physical like that, what do they call it? Somatic work, like the coaching in the martial arts, you're probably, you're practicing mindfulness, you're practicing breathing, you're doing stuff that will improve your physical health, and you're giving people control over their own, you're not giving it to them, you're helping them realize the control over their own body, which ticks all those therapeutic goals. It's awesome.
As well as like an anger release piece too, like someone could have like a lot of repressed anger or emotions or things they haven't processed, and if they come in and like smash a boxing bag for 10 minutes, they're going to be feeling a bit differently than what they did before if they kind of vent all of that out. In a similar way to like you get some therapists teach people to punch or scream in a pillow. It's like you can actually use that as on a boxing bag or the pads instead.
And they're doing it while being held in a state of emotional and physical safety by you, which is, the key to all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's it's also been really rewarding because I've found that like when I've gone out to different schools with like disengaged youth, especially where it's like outside of the normal schooling, but they're not quite in juvie yet. If I walked out and said, "Hi, my name's Kael, I like doing yoga and meditating, let's do a breathwork practice," like none of the kids are going to engage. But to walk out and be like, "Oh, my name's Kael Costa, I used to fight professionally, I've got these black belts in these martial arts, these title belts, and check out some of my fights on YouTube and let's do a bit of martial arts training," and then it's like get the kids to engage, and some of them, if they want, like I'll even let them have a bit of a spar where it's like I won't hit them or anything, but they can try and take me down or have a crack. And when they tap out in like 10 seconds, and they like kind of get a lot more respectful, and then they want to learn it because they're like, "What was that? That was awesome, like can you show me?" And then when I get these these like teens, especially like when they start one being a little bit more passionate and engaged and also respectful, then when I bring them to something like the yoga or the breathwork practices, it's like they take it on board because it's coming from somebody that they want to learn off, rather than
there's that credibility.
Absolutely.
You've got you have someone, you have Justin who's just joined us, so you know you're on now.
Hey, Justin. Yeah, I guess the martial arts as like a therapeutic tool. Like as I was just saying before, like I use it as an engagement piece. So one of my teachers always said, get the camel in the tent. Like you've got to get him in the tent, and then once the camel's in the tent, then you can work with it.
Yep.
So that I feel like the martial arts is a unique and interesting way to get somebody wanting to work with me, where, you know, if they might go to a talk therapist or something like that, like if someone's sitting down with a clipboard, they might feel very intimidated or not wanting to engage. But, you know, you take them outside in nature with Doug, or you get them doing some martial arts with me, then it's like they engage a bit differently, and then they start to open up and talk a little bit more, and yeah, get them engaged in something that's going to be positive and yeah, helping to improve their capacity in life. Yeah, which I've kind of just said on that second piece, like yeah, allows me to connect with teens and men in a way that I feel like some can't, and give them what they need wrapped in what they want. Kind of like you put the medicine in the dog's food and then the dog eats it. It's like these teens or the adults, it's like they might need emotional regulation tools, they might need a breathwork practice, they might need to vent out some anger. But what they want is to come in and learn some martial arts. But it's like, they come in for the martial arts, but then they leave with a couple of tools to maybe regulate their emotions, a breathwork practice when they start feeling like a bit heightened, like tapping into a bit of like a sympathetic state of fight or flight. Yeah, so kind of give them what they need wrapped in what they want. Yeah.
Well, engagement directly affects positive outcomes. So you're exactly right. You know, you engage people, and then they get all this other goodness as well.
Yeah, like I was working out at Blackwoods, and it was like at the end of the session, I was like, oh, there's this technique that the Navy SEALs use, and it's box breathing. So because it was coming from a fight guy in a martial arts session, and because I referred to Navy SEALs using it, next minute you've got a dozen teen boys sitting there with their eyes closed, box breathing, which
That's awesome.
Wouldn't have thought would have been possible from how the session started.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome.
Yeah, so I find like what I've been working with a bit more in the last few years is like, yeah, victims of crime, whether it's like domestic violence or sexual assault, and martial arts I found to be really powerful to build up safety in the body, confidence in themselves, and empowering them to get them out of that like fight, flight, or freeze state of that hypervigilance. And they then feel empowered through having some tools and techniques of like knowing that they can defend themselves a bit better. And as I was saying before, like really powerful anger release and an emotional outlet. I find that like, especially teen boys, actually, it's like they've got a lot of like pent up testosterone, and they're then forced to sit in a classroom and stare at a board for ages, where they need to be out running, jumping, climbing, pushing, pulling, throwing, slamming, wrestling. So yeah, I find that engaging with martial arts, probably very similar to yourself with the outdoor therapy, it's gets them moving, and then they can concentrate a bit better because they're using that energy productively rather than getting told off for fidgeting in the classroom.
Yep.
And yoga therapy. So I've been working with this a fair bit for myself in the last like 5-6 years, and then started teaching and coaching yoga in the last 2 years. I did my 200-hour yoga teacher training, and currently doing a 300-hour yoga therapy teacher training and another 100-hour yoga philosophy course. And yeah, I sit with my teacher in yoga therapy once a week for 2 to 3 hours to learn more skills, tools, and techniques to work with other people. And I found it really powerful as a means of just a mindfulness practice, like helping them to calm their mind and nervous system. And by giving them like a daily practice or ritual that they do, it could just be 10 minutes, but I've had a number of clients that are all find just that 5 or 10 minutes of starting out the day with a little bit of syncing breath to movement has been game changing in how they show up for the rest of the day, where it could just be something simple as like inhaling and lifting the arms up, exhaling into a forward fold, but trying to make the movement last 8 seconds while making the inhale last 8 seconds. And then the movement forwards 8 seconds while exhaling 8 seconds is actually quite challenging. And it tricks them into almost a bit of a meditative state or mindfulness exercise, because to sync breath and movement is quite difficult. And then it's regulating the nervous system, it's massaging the vagus nerve. And they're, in only 6 deep diaphragmatic breaths, your blood pressure changes, your heart rate changes, and you can drop into a parasympathetic state. So starting every day out like that when they might be a bit anxious or angry can be a little prod off in a different direction for the rest of the day.
And just to translate, sympathetic nervous systems, like when you're activated, danger, fight, flight. Parasympathetic is like you're calm, you're relaxed, you're safe.
Yeah. And so Samkhya philosophy, this is like something that I'm really passionate about that no one else has heard about. It's what precursored yoga philosophy. So yoga is like this holistic system that we think of yoga as just stretching in Lululemon tights on the beach. But that's only like one of 8 parts of yoga. So the whole system of yoga is like a bit of a philosophical way of living or thinking or expressing yourself in the world. And it doesn't matter whether you're religious or not. So it's you could be Christian or Muslim or Hindu, and you could be practicing yoga and studying a bit of like the yoga and Samkhya philosophy, or you could be completely atheist and it all still applies. So it doesn't matter whether it's what your belief system is, which is really powerful. It's actually, there's 196 yoga sutras from Patanjali, who was like this Brahmin or sage in ancient India, and it's the world's oldest self-help manual. So I've found that like all of modern psychology and every new spiritual practice or belief system or breathwork pattern, and Wim Hof, this is already in this 2,500-year-old document, which I've found has given like my clients something like special or ancient to follow, which seems to give them a bit of extra meaning to it, where it's like, if I just said, oh, do this, it's really good for you. Or instead I say, oh, there's this sutra from this 2,500-year-old text, and here's the words in Sanskrit, here's what it means. This is what the practice is. And I find that it's engaged the youth especially, and the adults, in really interested in learning something a bit new and different. And it's like to connect them to something a bit greater than themselves. So it's like, in the same way that I think religion can be great for people, because they're a part of a community or a belief system or something that's bigger or ancient. But we obviously definitely don't need to be religious or have a religious belief system. But I put down the bottom here an example of the 5 glaciers and the 7 to 9 pillars of life. So I use this from the Yoga Sutras to work with clients when they're experiencing suffering, which we all are at some point or another. All suffering comes from at least one of the 5 glaciers, which is like the poisons that afflict the mind. So when someone's like, oh, I'm having this problem at school or this problem at home, or I wish this was happening, it's like I can teach them about the 5 glaciers, which are, it's in Buddhist philosophy as well as yoga philosophy. But there's avidya, which is like ignorance. So I can then talk about like, well, your girlfriend picked up her phone and she laughed, but you don't know that she was laughing at another guy. It's like, you're ignorant of that. So there's that glacier present. Or there's asmita or egoism, which is like I amness. And we can all probably relate to ego coming into play at some point in our life and it causing some suffering. There's like raga or attachment, which is I might be attached to the outcome of something, attached to what I want something to look like, attached to how the rest of the day is supposed to go. And like a lot of suffering can come from our attachment to something. There's devesha, which is like repulsion or aversion. Like I'm avoiding a hard conversation. I'm avoiding expressing my feelings. I'm avoiding maybe going to work that day or to school that day. And these things will cause suffering. And then there's abhinavesha, which is like a fear of death or like a will to live, but it's also the death of something that might be no longer serving me, like a relationship or a friendship. So every single problem that person has, it's like if I relate it back to one of the 5 glaciers and I explain what they are and where they're from, it kind of makes them go, oh, it's okay that I feel shit because, it's coming from this, and somehow it starts to make them feel a little bit better, just shining a light on it in that way.
Yep.
And then another thing from the Vedic model or the Samkhya philosophy is the 7 or 9 pillars of life, which is like, I do this exercise with them in the first few sessions where it's like, I describe it as a table that has 7 or 9 legs, depending on their belief system. And that table has a plate on it, which has to sustain and hold up our life. And if some of the legs are missing or unbalanced, the plate slides off. So it's like, it's difficult to have this foundation in our life. And those pillars would be like in no particular order. We've got like friends, family, spouse, community, time in and connection to nature, a teacher or mentor, and rituals or practices. And the ritual isn't like a full moon ritual. It's it could be like the ritual of making a cup of tea in the morning, or taking the dog for a walk, or going to the gym every day. So those 7 rituals, or those 7 practices, sorry, and they say, well, you know, what's my family like? What's my friendship like? What's my community at the moment? Am I getting time in nature? Do I have daily practices? And have a look at which legs are shorter than the others. They can invest some time and energy into maybe building those legs to strengthen and hold the table up. And if a couple are missing, like they don't have any family around, or obviously a spouse if they're younger, well, the other legs need to be strong enough to support them. So if there's no family and there's no partner, well, let's really invest in their friendships and invest in their community and invest in a couple of teachers or mentors, to people to work with, that strengthens up that table that's going to sustain their life. And then depending on their belief system, you can add in connection to a god or deity, whatever that is, whether it's Allah, Jesus, Krishna, consciousness, something. And back in that Vedic time, they viewed animals as sacred, so they had a connection to animals. Back then, I think they were more referring to a sacred cow living in the lounge room. But today it would be like, do you have a dog or a cat? And it's like, you know, if you've got pets, like, you know, strengthen that connection to your pets or your animals, because that can be a very therapeutic benefit to them. So yeah, I like touching on that a little bit, because I find that teaches them something and gives them something to practice and work on. And everything that they come to me with a problem, I can relate it to something back in the sutras, which I've found to be quite engaging for the adults and the teens. The breathwork piece. So it's getting really popular now. I think breathwork is going to be like the new yoga in the next 5 years. It's this incredible tool to like regulate the nervous system and decrease anxiety and stress. It only takes 6 conscious deep belly breaths for, like I said before, the heart rate and blood pressure to drop, dropping you from that fight or flight sympathetic nervous state to a parasympathetic state of like rest and digest. A full breathwork immersion, which I wouldn't do with teens or kids, but like adults, can actually release naturally your body's own DMT, and can allow for like a really deep trauma release from the body and the tissues with things like PTSD. It's this really powerful book called The Body Keeps the Score, and it's like talks about trauma and things getting stuck in our tissues. So, you know, like it's like a war veteran, you know, might hear a car door slam and have a whole body reaction and think that they're back in the war, or it's a gun that's gone off. And they might be able to talk about it 1,000 times, but it's still going to be there stuck in the body, where through different like somatic or cathartic releases and that kind of bottom up approach instead of top down talk therapy, it can help to release some of those traumas from the body and the tissues, and to not react so strongly by increasing that window of tolerance in the nervous system. Where I find like a lot of kids and teens, they have if they've come from like a traumatic background, and the adults, they'll have a very like narrow window of tolerance in the nervous system, where if they get too close to the edge, they're in like full fight and flight, or they'll be, you know, in a depressed state and you know, unable to function, where the breath work can like start to stretch out that window of tolerance to give them a bigger capacity to move through life without stepping outside of their comfort zone. I just wanted to share, I guess, also that like I'm a student first, like I'm always studying further to try and be of service, like in a more powerful way. Currently studying a diploma in clinical hypnotherapy and gestalt psychotherapy, and a 460-hour biodynamic breathwork for trauma release. And also studying towards being a registered yoga therapist.
Amazing. Just to oh sorry.
No, yeah, you go.
I was just going to say, just to maybe summarize and recap some of the things you said. Like what you do is you're a martial arts instructor, you are a yoga instructor, you're a breathwork instructor, you're a mindfulness instructor, and you're bringing all these things together to provide an engaging service. Sorry, my dog's barking. To bring an engaging service, not just for youth, but for everybody, where you can help them learn skills like martial arts, but you're regulating their bodies, you're holding them in safety, you're providing mentorship, and also like skill mastery, so they're learning new things, they're building their esteem and their self-worth, and having control over their bodies. It's cool. It's really cool. And you're working in the here and now, and you're focusing on, you know, informed evidence around regulating people's brains from a bottom-up approach, using sort of, you know, you mentioned the body keeps score, so using some really trauma-informed research to sort of inform what you're doing. So it's great. I think it's amazing. And you're in Warragul, which is even better. How do people gain access to your service?
Yeah, so I've got a website, just kaelcosta.com, or I've linked in my mobile number and email address and just the price rate. Yeah, I've got clients that are billing through NDIS and Quantum. So yeah, those services are approving it, and yeah, victims of crime as well. So yeah, if you want to reach out on website, phone number, email, or I'm on Instagram. Instagram handle's just Kael Costa. It's all fairly yeah, awesome.
Easy to find. And you have availability at the moment?
Yeah, yep. So early mornings and evenings are pretty jam-packed, but I've got times free 1 to 3 hours every day during the day. So yeah, I've got 5 days a week. I can take on new clients at the moment. Yeah, especially during school hours, and yeah, a couple of morning time slots.
So everyone get in touch.
Yeah, basically.
And sorry, one thing I wanted to ask you too. You mentioned you do a lot of work with teenage boys and men. Do you also work with females and female identifying individuals?
Yeah, absolutely. I should have probably spoken a little bit more into that. So I've got 2 that are transitioning at the moment, teenagers that are identifying as they and them. And yeah, I've got I started out with the intention to work with more males, but I've actually probably got more female clients at the moment, especially in that realm of like sexual violence or assault, domestic violence and family violence, and a couple of rape victims. So it's yeah, well, that wasn't my intention initially as much, because I thought, you know, I'll reach teen boys, but the yeah, I'm working more with females at the moment that are yeah, I find that they're getting a lot out of the martial arts piece, especially just in terms of building themselves back up after some trauma that's happened. And yeah, it's really rewarding, like seeing the shift in a short space of time. And they're not working with me for a long time. Like they're only there for 2 to 4 months, and they're kind of at a point where they're like, thanks heaps, like they got what they needed from it, and yeah, they're happy to go.
That's fantastic. So you're a safe service for everybody, basically.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And you do individual sessions. Do you do group sessions?
Yeah. I do group sessions and just price that based off how many people are there. And yeah, I have group classes that I run of a night time at Tribe MMA, but I do group sessions. Like I've got one for a school from Morwell that's coming down on Monday. They're doing a session.
Awesome.
Yeah, and got a family starting soon too. So yeah, absolutely do the group sessions.
Brilliant. Justin, being our most active supporter on these webinars, because you've been to, I think, every one, do you have any questions for Kael since you're here? No pressure, you don't have to.
No, just to say keep on doing the good work you're doing. Just seeing that you're involving both the trauma-informed practice with the with your mindfulness, your yoga, combining all those things together is the best thing for it. So really good. I'm on my own journey of mental health recovery and seeing how different people go about it is really interesting for me.
Yep.
And having worked in that sort of space as well, it's coming from two different areas. So yeah, seeing what you do is really cool, and I'm glad that you're a service that's been offered, especially for young women who have gone through some hard things. It's pretty cool to see. So keep up the good work is all I'm thinking, and I'm definitely going to have a bit more look into the philosophy you talked about. I haven't heard that mentioned before, but it seems down my alley. So thank you very much.
Oh, cool.
Thank you.
Thanks, Justin. And you've still got one more webinar to attend next week too.
Cool.
Well, that's cool. That's brought us like bang on half an hour of just awesomeness. So I reckon, unless you've got anything else to add, Kael, I reckon we'll wrap it up there and keep it as a nice bite-sized piece that people can watch and listen to in the future.
Awesome. Sounds perfect. Thanks, Eeks.
Cool. Thank you so much for joining me, mate. And yeah, I'll see you soon.
Awesome. See you soon. Bye.